I got a text message that my fiance at the time was leaving me. I was in so much pain that I was at a point where I was looking at taking my life. It's so important that, that the reframe that men are looking for is, if they are going through difficult things, is to immediately identify patterns of victimhood in you and work towards weeding that out of your system. You want to advance your life really quick, if you want to advance your life real quick or take the reins back in your life, the number one thing you can get good at is learning how to direct your energy and your attention. Balance is a myth. Balance is, if balance is in your head and you're a man and you hear the word balance and you say, I want to get my life balanced, alarm bells. Balance is a pipe dream. It does not exist.
All right, today I have the pleasure of being here with Dan Ballard, fresh off the plane. Dan, you're somebody who's changed my life massively over the past 9 months, and it's a pleasure to have you on today. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, it's an honor.
Well, obviously, since we've been working together, I've found my life has changed extramentally. Obviously, I felt like going back 9 months ago, I was a completely different person from indulging in hedonistic tendencies and definitely always working hard, but not having a clear direction towards, what I wanted out of life. And I feel like when you don't have a clear direction, you're a feather in the wind and you can just, float one way or another. And that's where I guess having the guidance and the leadership and the direction to know what it is you want is I would say vital to being successfully fulfilled as a man and being genuinely happy. So again, it's a pleasure to have you on here, and let's rewind the clock a bit. I suppose how did that TEDx come about, and
Sure.
And how was all of that?
So good place to start for sure. Well done on all your efforts over the last few months. It's been a pleasure to go on that journey with you. And it's an honor to be here today. And on my side of things, it's been a whirlwind in the last few days, but it's been fantastic. Now, to answer the question on TEDx, well, it was 2018. I was in Bali. I just finished running one of my immersive events, and it struck me that I had a vision, just like you're saying about having a vision, and it's not something I sort of plucked out of thin air. It's actually connected to my backstory and where I've been and what I've been through, and also to get to where I am today. Looking back, all the dots connect perfectly to that point. But on that journey, it's you can only connect the dots looking backward. You can't connect the dots looking forward. It's only backwards. So it all makes sense now. But in 2018, I thought to myself, I want to speak. And I want to speak on that stage. And I chose TED because I've watched a lot of really powerful TED Talks. And my backstory, I haven't always been this confident person and this self-assured person I am today. And I just ran a beautiful event, and it was really, really deep experience with my students over there, my guests that joined. And I chose in 6 years' time from that date in 2018 that I was going to do a TED Talk. And I got the phone call, 2024, so 6 years on the dot. And from there, it's been, I feel like I've just been go, go, go the whole time. Haven't had much downtime, and I'm grateful to be here to keep that process rolling. But I haven't really reflected too much on it so far, but to get there, it has been a journey, to say the very least.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess your background in 2018, how did it start in terms of where did this come from of wanting to present?
Yeah, I guess I feel like we all, particularly for men, we all have this desire to want to be respected, right? And to do something meaningful in the world, to contribute really positively and to achieve, quote unquote success. So the vision was very clear from me from the start. I was a deeply insecure kid, and I say this in the TED Talk. I had 2 front teeth that grew down sideways. I was even once, and I was literally front facing towards each other, and I was asked if I could eat an apple through a tennis racket. So not too much confidence coming straight off the bat. It's like And yeah, I guess I've never, where it all started for me is I started my entrepreneurial journey 14 years ago. And I started in the fitness industry. I had a vision of going and becoming a teacher. I always knew I wanted to be a teacher. If it wasn't going to be an Olympic athlete, it was going to become a teacher. And I was inspired by my own, because I was good at sports, and I was inspired by the teachers at my school at the time. So I signed up for university. I went the hard way around it because I didn't really apply myself at school. I had a hard time at school, didn't really fit into it. The things I loved, I did really well at. But I found the hard way around getting into the uni to fulfill that dream. But I did my Cert 3 and 4 in fitness. Not thinking too much of it. It's like I had a keen interest in training. I was always training. Been training for 25 years, I should say. And I knew that was going to be the best path, because I realized I could get into the degree I wanted to do through doing Cert 3 and 4 in fitness. Now, it wasn't until I applied myself and I did really, really well at that course, and I actually got told by one of the teachers, you should really look at starting your own business and getting into the industry. Mm. And I was, no, I've got this dream. I want to go and become a secondary PE teacher. It's my dream. No, I think you should do this. Anyway, at the time I was also working in like solid surfacing and cabinet making, and again, that's something I really liked. But a good friend of mine who ended up becoming my business partner, and he said, Dan, you need to take a step. Like, you need to get out and just do what you feel is going to, what do you enjoy the most? And it was training. So I stepped out and joined this fitness club. And at the time, it wasn't cool to be a trainer. Like, it wasn't like it was today. It was actually quite a risk. And I decided to start a business and go into my first year of business straight off the bat. It was very successful. So I had a very, very successful first year of business where I learned pretty much from the ground up what it means to run a business. And I did it within a fitness club. So I also had a bit of leverage at a start. I had access to members, and I got to learn the ropes. I put myself out there a lot, and over that journey, I advanced myself in leadership positions within that organization, and yeah, things were going really well. But then I got a phone call one day. It wasn't even a phone call. I didn't even get that. I got a text message that my fiance at the time was leaving me, and I must have ignored all the early warning signs, but it was over and I couldn't bring anything back. I had no control. So here I was thriving. I was in a great financial position. I was doing very, very well. I was running a team of 16 at the time, plus my own business on top of that. So that to then lose that and to go into this puddle of grief.
How do you deal with that?
That's the thing. I couldn't. I didn't know how to deal with it. I was in so much pain that I was at a point where I was looking at taking my life. And I just remember being in so much pain, and I actually had my mum of all people by my side, and I was broken. And on one hand, I had the success I wanted. I got the property I've always envisaged getting. And things are going.
Trust, yeah.
Things are going great, and then. Yeah, the hardest part of this journey though, Bo, wasn't just that. It wasn't just managing the grief of being abandoned. It's an abandonment. It wasn't just that. It was actually that I didn't know myself. I didn't have the emotional skills to deal with what I was going through. I didn't know who I was. So I felt like whatever I built up in years prior as well too, whatever I built up had been stripped completely back. And that's when I truly realized just how isolated and scared, fragile I really was. So for me, that was the most important time in my life. It was the hardest and the darkest, but it was also the most important. That's truly where it started for me.
And for somebody in a similar situation, how do you even make the first step to pull yourself out of such a situation?
Yeah, sure. Well, it's a great question. Today we have so many resources. Back when it happened, back then, it's not like it was now. We have access to so much information. There are so many professionals in lots of different fields that can help with healing, and they can help with support systems and even ways you can orientate yourself in a positive direction. I at the time, the only thing I knew was I had so much tension inside myself. I didn't know who I was. My body was tight. I was riddled with tension. So I started with yoga. The first 2 sessions in a yoga room, it was a heated yoga room, 40 degrees. And I walked out the very first session halfway through. The teacher at the time is Tony, who I later ended up working in his studio. He said, "You can't leave, Dan. You can't leave." And I gone, "Get fucked. I'm going." And I walked out. It was just too intense. Like, I had so much coming up, so many emotions unprocessed, so much pain. But truly, that was the unraveling I needed. And years of the practice actually helped me not just release this stress, this tension and stress I was holding on to, but yoga is a fantastic practice to help you get into a deeper connection with yourself and to refine your intellect, to tap into the vastness of the whole human experience and what it means to live. And I don't know, I really don't know where I'd be without that. So at the time I wasn't looking for it. It kind of just walked into it. And the rest is history. Years later, I've taught around the world for yoga. You know, I've run international events. I've taught at international events. I've taught meditation. You know, these are these dots that I didn't imagine myself. You know, I couldn't going from this hardened like strength and conditioning expert into like yoga. People were thinking I was like, "What have you done? Or what are you doing?" And
yeah. Wow. Do you feel like trauma and a man's development? Do you think that's linked?
Yes, I think. When I say it's the most important thing I went through, it was absolutely a gift. It was the single most.
Why is that?
Why is it? Well, I think about when you've been to the depths of who you really are and you've experienced hardship or we haven't been able to, we've had control taken away from you and you've had to really like stand on your own 2 feet and deal with difficult things and you get through that. Not only get through that, but then build your successes around from the bottom up. You're pretty hard to break, mate. And I think it's so important that that the reframe that men are looking for is if they are going through difficult things, is to immediately identify patterns of victimhood in you and work towards weeding that out of your system. Because it is an ultimate gift to be given struggle. It's a gift to be given struggle. It's a gift to be given trauma. It's a gift to take your experiences in life that maybe were unfair and to play the hand you were dealt like it was given to you in your favor. And I think that's the most important thing a man can do, is to take full responsibility for his life. Because at one point in my life, I completely want to run away from all responsibility.
How do you find the path back from despair to prosperity?
Well, big question. First and foremost, I'd say it's a journey. Like, the journey begins with one step. Journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. There's that quote, cliche.
So it could be something as small as getting up out of bed before a certain time. For instance, you're getting up at midday or 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Today I'm going to get up at 10. Yeah. Today I'm going to do 1 lap around the oval. Today I'm going to listen to one positive podcast or have a cold shower as you get more advanced, for instance. But it's about taking the first step, you say.
Yeah, and to pull it back to what you said at the start of the podcast, vision's important. Vision, to the words of Jim Camp, vision drives decision. And when we have an aim in life, it allows us to orientate life around the aim, and life tends to form around the aim that we have. So if you don't have an aim, you don't have a vision, I would encourage you to learn yourself, to look at your backstory, check in with your passions, your curiosities. What are the things that maybe don't make sense to everyone else at the time, i.e. fitness? I had a passion there. Did it make sense to become a trainer? It does now. It's a billion-dollar industry. But at the time, it was the thing I was most curious and passionate about. And those decisions, like those micro decisions of going, okay, I'm going to invest time into training. So it might be, you might set yourself up a day, all right, I'm going to exercise this today and I'm going to rest this day and I'm going to eat well. I'm going to eat well in between. Getting there, the journey to this ideal that we have for our life or the ultimate vision it doesn't come. I think this is the problem that what a lot of men face as well too, and society as a whole, is that we live in this instant gratified state of consciousness. It's also driven by destination consciousness. How quickly can I get there? And I've got to get there. And that's the quickest path to unfulfillment.
So shifting the focus from a destination approach to a journey approach where you're just enjoying being here and you're enjoying the struggle if you can.
Absolutely. I say consciousness because anything that has life and anything that has life within it. So it involves the whole state of your being. So I've got to get there, and if I don't get there, I'm a failure. You know, we see this with social media. You can make yourself feel like absolute shit by just spending 10 minutes on social media that usually turns into 30, 40, 50 minutes.
Comparison, yeah. I feel like, do you feel like comparison is the thief of joy?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know what? I think sometimes we're going to compare. We're social beings to our core, biologically hardwired to connect. So we are going to judge, we are going to compare because we're social. I think that the most important thing that a man can have, anyone can have, is to have self-awareness. Operating these platforms without self-awareness, without a vision for your life, and a clear set of guiding principles like priority for your life, a system for your life, for what you want to achieve, for how you want to, do you want to make a more significant impact in the world? We have to have our life organized. We have to have our consciousness organized towards that direction. And then time on social media can be seen as maybe productive. Maybe you learn off someone who has a similar interest and I haven't thought about that idea in that way. And you get access to new information, or maybe information that's already been there, but because it's come from someone that is on the same path as you, it triggers something in you and inspires you to take further action. Whereas if you're orientating without vision, without direction, and you're aimless in life, I call this the wayward man. It's a very, very dangerous place for a man to be, is to be wayward in the world.
In terms of comparison, say and this happens at all realms. Like I remember, when I'm starting out, I'm comparing myself to somebody who's a year ahead and I'm thinking, wow, they've got such a better business than me. And you're comparing on one particular topic. So for instance, I might compare my business size to somebody who's been doing it for 10 or 15 years and then feel like I'm insubstantial. But then that person may compare their health and fitness towards my health and fitness so I think like it's very convenient and selective and, it's a bit rich to actually just compare on one thing when you're not actually comparing against the whole thing. So it's always, you're comparing against, Dwayne Johnson's muscles versus Elon Musk's wealth and Trump's confidence. And, it's like you're taking one thing, and I feel like it's like, it's really unfair because you're not looking around the whole, like a whole rounded person. You're actually just taking out their good traits, a trait of yours, but you're not taking into account the whole person. And I think that's a big one too. Like,
yeah, that's something we've covered before between you and I. I think I've said these words to you. It's like, great, this is normal. I think it's the first thing is to acknowledge. Okay, it's normal that I'm feeling this. Just like what I said in my TED talk. It's normal to want to be liked, but when there's excessive need to be liked, just like the need that we feel that we have to be, on social media and consuming everyone else's lives and comparing ourselves, like that's when it becomes a bit of a dangerous thing. Now, I've said this to you is that, all right, if you're going to take on board, if you're going to have this desire to compare yourself to other people and they have this fantastic life that's more often than not a facade, and they don't show the whole picture, that's how things are engineered at the moment and set up on social media. It's engineered in a way to make you feel like you're missing out. Now, I try to remind myself, I'll talk to my person. I try to remind myself personally, because I slip into this just like everyone else does. I try to remind myself that if I do compare myself to someone else, what I'm also doing is I also am taking on all of their struggles. I'm taking on all of their relationship concerns. We see this time and time again, particularly for men who are quite affluent and successful. Okay, take that on. Then you can also have a broken down marriage to deal with on top of that. But we don't see this. So this is something I've encouraged you to do. It's like, okay, if you are going to compare yourself and get stuck in that cycle, first acknowledge that and accept that I'm doing that. That's what's going on. It's normal. But then I also have a bit of a mental reframe, a shift that I go through. It's like, okay, I'm going to take on all of their problems too. You know, which I can't see the whole iceberg here, but I'm going to take on all their problems. And then, the deeper you go into this process, the more you meditate into it, you realize it always comes back to you. And your life right now, there's no life better than yours. Always playing true to your own life and staying in your frame as much as possible. So every time I go on that journey myself and I get stuck in that doom scroll, or I get stuck comparing myself, or maybe even slipping to judging people, and which is interesting because the moment I judge someone,
where does judging come from?
Yeah, cool. I think same place. When I talk about the paleolimbic brain is the instinctual part of our brain that drives all of our behaviors like this. It's the emotional cortex of the brain. And as I was saying, we are social beings to our core, and a lot of our survival and successes in our life depend on how well we connect to, communicate, and relate to everyone else around us. So that's the first understanding. Where it comes from, we are social beings. And our successes and our survival as a species up until this point has been determined and driven from this instinctual part of the brain. And it hasn't changed. Our ancestors used to stay part of the herd. If they were liked by the herd, that would ensure them survival, a chance to reproduce, and food. We don't have those same things anymore, but we have different pressures. But our brain hasn't changed from those times. We still equate social acceptance with success. So when we judge other people, it's because we only tend to judge people that we feel like we're doing better than as well, which is really interesting. That's how the psyche works. We will judge someone who we feel like we're doing better than, and if we are slipping into judgment of someone who we perceive that that they are doing better than us, we're internalizing all of that. So judgment's like a
shield or something.
Yeah, it is, but it's also like drinking the poison and expecting the other person to die. The moment if you really feel into the energy of what judgment is, and you separate what's going on in your mind, what's going on with that person, you really sit in the energy of it, you realize judgment is quite literally, it's something inside you gets divorced from your soul, your spirit. The moment you judge, you get divorced from it. And it creates this disconnect. And I always think about this as like, well, what is disconnect? Because everything in this reality is all just reflection based. It comes from the mirrored state inside of ourselves, our self-image. So the moment I'm in that spiral, in that loop of judgment, I straight away go, what's going on? That's my first tool, is what's going on?
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, I'm low on sleep.
So you stop yourself and go, because you can fall into these patterns if you're not careful.
Absolutely.
And being successful across all realms, it's a constant battle and journey where the other side, if you're not careful and if you're not constantly trying to improve, you're actually going to slip back into some of these patterns. And it's good that you have these techniques to be so aware of it. All you can do is be aware of it, and you can call yourself mastering it, but you can never truly click your fingers and it's over. And
no, it's a constant journey. That's why I say self-awareness for a man is imperative. Like, you need this, particularly as the world changes and we're more disconnected than ever before. A lot of men, I think 60% of society experiences loneliness now. And we spend 17 years on our phone. The average Australian spends 17 years on their mobile phone. How much of that time is spent scrolling and consuming and living in the online frames of other people? Self-awareness is so important because everything's engineered right now to almost against you. So you actually lose a lot of context of who you are.
The algorithms are so clever. The AI is phenomenal. The technology is so far advanced that we don't stand a chance.
And the world profits off your attention. You want to advance your life really quick. If you want to advance your life real quick or take the reins back in your life, the number one thing you can get good at is learning how to direct your energy and your attention. It's called mental energy management. Get really good at understanding through self-awareness, through practices like yoga that can help sharpen your mind to a single point so you can stay more focused. There are lots of practices out there now these days, but this is how I did it. We've got to have something that allows us to take the reins back in our life. And then when we are engaging these patterns, these self-limiting patterns of behavior, we have the awareness and the insight and also the courage to go, fuck, I'm stuck in this cycle here.
So the game is almost to understand and manage the ROI of your energy and attention so that you're not slipping into bad patterns, and that so you're being as productive as possible, and not productive in the sense of making the most money, but being productive in the sense of being able to live a fulfilling life to get you to your desired vision that you're excited about for the future.
Yeah, I'm a holistic mentor. And that's why we click. I feel like, you're quite a successful guy, and I love working with successful people because you're playing at that edge of human potential about what's possible, and you're looking to move forward powerfully in the world. That's what I call a significant impact. But then there are the other areas of our life that, as I said, being social beings, we're built for relationships. The first thing that tends to go down for a man who's driven on his mission is relationships. That's why a lot of men stay single, because they just want to stay focused on their mission until they meet the right person. But I look at my life right now. I'm actually in a position where I've had a lot of relationship struggles, a lot of wisdom that has come through relationship pain. But I'm actually in a place where my wife and my son, like, I have the most happy, balanced life. Nothing's ever perfect, but we're pretty close at the moment.
How did your life change when you got married and also had your son?
Yeah, look, it was confronting, man. It was really, I found it confronting to actually step up and take, it's that responsibility piece.
To step up, yeah.
So I guess the greatest thing I never ever want to do is ever feel like that my son or my future child would ever be a burden because of me. I didn't want them to feel like, I got in the way of dad. There's always been this altruistic view outside of my frame around, I've got to do all this in the world and take on the world, and I can't have kids because of it. So there's that piece, but there's also this underlying fear. I didn't know what it was about. I had this fear of becoming a dad, and it took me a long time to get over it. Perhaps it had to do with my fear of abandonment that, is something that's been really entrenched in my life that I had to do a lot of work around. But I link it more towards, and now I know with Ziggy's my son, like when I'm with him and he's just being him and he's just full of just life and joy, and I can see all of my work that I've done on myself, and both my wife's done a lot of work on herself too, but it just shines through him. He's the happiest kid on the planet.
Yeah.
Like,
how's that?
It's great. It's the best, man. It really reflects back to you how important it is to balance all these other areas of our life. And why I like working with performers as well is I don't try and divorce performance from the person. I try and teach you how to skillfully manage and dance between the two. We just spoke to Vlad about this. It's about managing the modes of the man, the modes of a masculine man. So I've got this modern perspective on what masculinity is. And, I've gone one way, I've gone super hard about it, from hustle culture, built up, big, taking steroids and in the gym, and I'm the biggest, strongest alpha, broken inside though, right? Then I went the other way. I went to the yoga space and I was vegan for a little bit, and I was like, lost in my emotions. I learned all about my emotions, but I also got a bit swept up in the whole chasm that is. But I found the middle ground now, and I've got this beautiful balance between, having the grace and the empathy and, this other side of my aspect of my personality where I'm in touch with myself, but also have the conviction as a man to take full responsibility. And to answer your question on, how is it stepping up in marriage and being a dad? Well, it's taking on board all that. I'm ready for this. I'm ready to take on this responsibility. Like, my role of providing isn't just providing financially. I'm going to provide a safe home, a home where my house is full of love. I'm going to provide a home where my son doesn't have to walk on eggshells. Like, he's safe to be himself. He knows dad's going to be there for him. Even if he's not home right now, I'm in Melbourne, I've just flown in, but he's in a safe household. He knows dad's coming back. He knows that his dad loves him. He's proud of him regardless. For me, that's what I'm talking about, this holistic success. For me, everyone's different, but that's I had to get myself to a level where I accepted that responsibility and work myself through my own barriers to that. And I realized that the barrier was just this underlying fear of commitment. I was scared of commitment, of actually meeting my deepest pain, which comes from this abandonment wound, and also lots of things in myself that I had to overcome. And when I worked through it, I've realized this love on the other side of it, that is just, you can't put into words.
And Yeah, I think that's huge in relation to the providing side of things. A lot of people just say, yeah, I'm a provider, and they think, oh yeah, just because they pay the bills, they're a provider. But I think it's so much more than that, and providing that safe framework for your child to feel like they're not walking on eggshells, and your partner to fulfill as much of their being as possible, I think is huge. So I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, man, I think it's the most important thing to be at that. Yeah, I think that's what a lot of men. You know what? There's a lot of people struggling with this right now. Like the dance of life. Life is accelerating and getting harder and harder to manage.
Why do you think that is?
Economics, social media, the way everything's accelerating and speeding up. And I think, and also we've also got a very easy life. Like everything exists in the palm of our hand. So discomfort, talking about trauma and things that are unfavorable, right? Discomfort makes the man. I actually think that we need, like when it comes to talking about responsibility, taking responsibility is part therein. You have to have some sort of practice that makes you feel uncomfortable.
How do you kill victimhood?
How do you kill it?
Yeah, like somebody's feels sorry for themselves, victimhood, angry at the world, all of that sort of thing. Like how is somebody taking the first step around navigating that perhaps?
Well, first step is always, are you problem aware? I've had plenty of people that have come to me and said they're ready to move their life forward, but they're not ready to take responsibility for this.
So how do you become problem aware?
Problem aware. So maybe you look at, I like to set up a thing called anti-vision. Anti-vision is, we spoke about the role of vision, but I've actually never spoke to you about anti-vision.
No.
Anti-vision is having what do you really, really hate about your life? What do you dislike about yourself? What don't you want to happen? And when you know what you don't want, and when you know what you don't like about yourself, you're ready to integrate that and move forward really powerfully in the world. So when I realized for the longest time, I've had lots of unfavorable things happen to me. Betrayal on the deepest level by people I trust. You know, I've had people steal from me, quite exorbitant amount of money stolen. I've had, friends turn their backs on me. We know this through COVID. We've had, people that you thought were your people, like completely do a 180. Leads to all these, it's a long list of things, man. But the thing that I've always wrestled against is the inner victim. I've never ever liked ever identifying with that, despite these patterns actually playing out. And my wife is actually someone who's mirrored back to me actually how limiting and how much inner victim shines through sometimes to me. So in those moments where she says, like, you're so stuck in being a victim, Dan, like your headspace is in a terrible space, I don't say, well, blah, blah, blah. I don't go blaming anyone. I go, fuck, all right, what's going on? I take stock. I take stock of my life. I take stock of what's happening inside myself. That might mean going for a walk. I don't attack her. I go for a walk and try and clear my head or get frame and perspective. When I'm angry and frustrated, the last thing I want to do is get more angry. Whenever you're angry and you're upset, frustrated, or things are going wrong, step back. We need perspective in those moments. We don't need more information. What you
told me actually was one thing for me. I got quite angry when I felt like someone was trying to do one over with me, or there's a money issue and somebody doesn't want to pay or something like that, and I get heightened level of anger. How you described it was getting hijacked. And when you get hijacked, you do things that perhaps you will regret, and you justify that you won't regret them in the time through ego and through, I'm here, I can do this, send them a letter, get angry, bit of a call, bit of a swearing message, whatever. But you realize that after that, you've actually been hijacked, and it is the hardest thing in the world to actually pull back and take a break. And I'd actually need to, I guess first thing, as you mentioned, is realizing that you're actually getting hijacked. That's the first thing. Anger is hijacked. It can be powerful, but also you're getting hijacked. How do you navigate that?
Yeah, look, great perspective to offer people because it's so common. Realizing you're hijacked, like this is what I'm saying with people like myself that help you become aware of your patterning and around your tendencies, traits. Like there are three things for entrepreneurs they need to get a hold of to grow. One is their beliefs as an entrepreneur. Two is their skills as an entrepreneur, and then traits as an entrepreneur. So what we need to understand about when we're hijacked is that Anger's a secondary emotion. And the primary emotion behind anger is sadness. So it's something coming from a really like depressive, like pulling down type energy. But what's interesting, what rides just to the left of this sadness is actually shame. There's something inside of you that is like getting pressed as a boundary that's being crossed. There's something in you that hasn't been expressed. This feeling of someone's someone has one up me here, that actually comes from the inner victim. So if you're aware of that and you go, fuck, I've been hijacked. Like I'm in this what I call an F reaction. I'm in an F reaction here because most of them are like fight, force, flee, all these like responses that get elicited because certain feelings that are rushing through the body, all these neurochemicals rushing through the body, which are all the emotions of the past that have been triggered, are literally hijacking your whole system and producing a level of mind that's telling you, I'm not enough and I should one up the. It creates this whole projection that gets you in trouble. So the first thing there in that moment, if that's what's going on, is like you're not going to get this awareness all at once. It takes training and practice, but over time you're going to notice you're in that mode. And you're going to be able to pull yourself back and step back and get perspective. Like nothing ever gets solved in the state.
Practice though, it's very difficult. I mean, when you just see rage, it's underlying, it's deep.
Yep.
It's because of things that you feel that have been, so far rooted back.
Maybe you've been shut down in the past. Maybe you've been told you shouldn't speak up in the past. Maybe someone has betrayed you. Maybe lots of these experiences that imprint on our psyche, often from a young age. Like we still carry the past with us. And until that becomes like examined or integrated in our life, it will run unconsciously in the background. So this is what we can do is we can work with people that can help us, or even meditation can do this for you as well. It's a free practice that can help you get insight into how you operate. And it's with this insight we can start to lead a more powerful life because we take back those reins of control. And we don't hand it over. We're not under the spells of the emotions that keep us held in the past. We can actually see into great opportunities. And when we're pressed to advance our life and maybe next level of success meets us, that with each new level of success there'll be a new devil. And rather than slipping back into the past and succumbing to that level, the devil that exists in that level, like you can beat that final boss and get to the next level. It's just a game. Like entrepreneurism is a game. It's finding creative ways to solve problems that exist, right? And it's like literally just, I don't know, do you feel it the same way, seeing entrepreneurs as a game?
I feel like from my end, a big thing that you'd actually help me with was repurposing my why. I think your why and your vision, as we spoke about earlier, is the most integral part of success. It's around, and that was actually the first thing we ever spoke about.
Yes.
And
did you ever read the book I got
Simon Sinek, Why? I'm about halfway through it.
Good.
But I watched a lot of videos. I'm a bit better on the audio. And, the why and the vision is so important because it's where it all begins. And if you don't have a why, you can become a feather in the wind and, things don't matter and you're at a good level and a comfortable level that you're happy with. But that's where I feel like you need to be thankful, grateful, but still itching to move on to the next phase.
Yeah.
And I feel like it was a fine balance. For a long time for me, it was all or nothing. So how I was able to actually excel and get so many properties was through negative self-talk. So I would compare myself to, other people in the industry, some guys, 30 properties by 30 and this sort of thing. I'm behind.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, I'm negative self-talk, work harder, Uber, business, mortgage broking. Okay, cool. I've saved another deposit. Cool. There's another one.
Yep.
There's another one. And that negative self-talk definitely, it was my fuel, but at the same time, you're miserable going through it. And then it leaves a stain of, an unworthiness, for instance.
Well, you never arrive at your solace. You never arrive at fulfillment.
Yes.
So it's like my question there is like, I don't stop people. If people have got a strong drive and ambition, the worst thing I could possibly do as a mentor is kill that.
Of course, yeah.
What I want to do though is I want to learn why you're doing that. And I find this question stops a lot of men in their tracks. If you can't answer this question, it needs to be asked. What is enough for you? And I find that the what is enough stops us in our tracks and gets us thinking about why am I doing what I'm doing? how high is the ceiling? How wide's the walls? Where am I going? What am I doing it for? If you can clearly articulate that and you really know in your heart of hearts what that's about, then that's all the ambition, inspiration you're ever going to need. But a lot of men orientate in the world without this, well, what is enough? So you never really end up arriving, and a lot of people get to the end of their life and they fucking realize that most of the regrets that people have when they go to the end of life, they meet death. They say, I wish I didn't work that hard. I wish I spent more time to do what I love.
What are some things that should be rounded out in a well actioned vision, say?
Taking like I look at lots of different things. Sometimes we don't actually know what we want, and that's why a lot of people don't start. Is because they're not clear on who they are. They don't understand who they are. They don't understand their values. I always love to go into values first because I love to build life around value. Like most men want to become higher value, and that tells you that that's where I should start. So rather than taking on board Andrew Tate's values, study your own and look to your curiosities. Look to things you love. What is your house filled with? Is your house filled with books? So you value education. What did you dream about when you were a kid, like myself? Well, I dreamed to be confident. It means you value self-expression and confidence. Great. So you start to learn yourself and you embed what you do around who you are. People buy who you are first, then they buy your products. People buy who you are, then they buy your products. And the goal in business is to do business with people you like. That's why I'm here. I like you. I think I see a vision for you that's far, far beyond sometimes what you can see. And that's great. That means that I'm going to be able to contribute higher value towards you. And the only reason that works is because you understand on a deeper level that I've met myself at those levels and I can help you look. My job's not to tell you what to do. It's just hey, have you thought about this? Where's that coming from? Have you thought about that? Here's how I would do this actually.
Another preconception that you actually taught me was not being able to live in the dark and in the light at the same time. So for instance, let me say when I was deciding, so now I'm clear on my vision, I've decided what I want to achieve, and perhaps I, enjoy certain things. And for instance, some of the things were drinking, smoking. At the time I was single, so I was, going out, etc. So, I was saying, all right, well, what about if I only do this on this day? And trying to put in rules in place. And that's where balance comes in. And I was like, well, what if I balance it out? And what if I was a little bit this way sometimes and a little bit that way sometimes? Maybe let's talk about why balance is a myth and your take on that.
Sure. Balance is a myth. Balance is like, if balance is in your head and you're a man and you hear the word balance and you say, I want to get my life balanced, alarm bells. Balance is a pipe dream. Does not exist. Nothing significant, particularly on the playing field of a life, on the playing field of life for a man, nothing significant gets built from occupying the middle ground. Because you never ever give things the right amount of time for them to truly develop and flourish into what they can be. You also never exert yourself to a point where to get things may manifest and get things done. So what we don't want is balancing. Balancing is the ideal. It exists, but it doesn't come from trying to find balance. It comes from what's known as counterbalancing. It's being able to work the extremes, work towards your edge at work, in relationships, managing family, all these things of life, all these different modes of a man's life. Balance is found by working those edges and then counterbalancing at those edges, knowing when to come back to your center, when you need to rest, take stock of who you are, take stock of what's happening in your life. Maybe you notice certain patterns in your relationship. Maybe you're actually seeing that, okay, there is something going on for my wife that I'm missing. What is she truly saying? So you leave things where they are at the edge, you come back to the middle to keep it, to keep things in balance. Cool. So you slow down, you'll meditate, you'll have a hard conversation, say, I've noticed that you've been really picky at me lately. What's going on? Like, I really want to help. I really want to understand how you're feeling. Nothing to do with you. You let it all come out and you pay attention to what she's truly saying. But if you stay to that edge, right? Push, push, push. You're not in the space of receptivity. You're in that mode to be able to receive those messages you need to see and hear, because your head's in like grind mode, right? And you're just in making things happen. Money, deals, networking, content, all the dance. So you need to have, I feel like balancing is the pipe, being balanced is a pipe dream. Knowing when to come back to the middle is a true mastered skill for a man. So we had a conversation on the way in, actually, in your office with Ballard. Ballad's done my event in Bali, and he actually commented, said we should bring this up in the podcast today. Ballard got a lot of value from, and I'm going to do the best I can to talk about what he got value of. I didn't really plan to do this on retreat. It just happened. Incidental learning. So I like to look at things just as different modes set up in my day. And for entrepreneurs, this really works because, as I said, we're doing a creative dance the whole day long. Here's one mode, relationships. Business is another mode. Social life, another mode. Your performance training, health and fitness, another mode. And with that idea of the balance is a pipe dream and counterbalancing has to exist, you've got to learn how to dance through all those different modes. When you're at home, you're relating intimately, be at home. Don't be at work. When you're at work, set boundaries that allow you to be at work so that the dance from home doesn't come to you at work. Yeah? So it's just learning how to skillfully set modes up, modes of play. It's play. This is how you stay like, you don't burn yourself out. You gotta love what you do. You gotta feel like you're playing a game, and all you're doing here is you're doing the best you can to keep all the dishes spinning, keep all the balls in the air. But the thing you can't drop is that you got to be careful of what ball you're going to drop, right? They're all made of glass, all right? But the one thing they're all made of rubber, but the one thing that's made of glass is, like, because we are social beings, you have to choose which one it is, but it's relationship. If that falls, it's a glass ball, it'll smash.
Yep.
Right? So that's the wisdom there.
Definitely.
Does that help?
Yeah, definitely. And when you talk about communication being that, it's your specialty and that's something that you've helped a lot, what do you think is some good strategy around how to communicate, whether it's with your partner, whether it's with, say, an employee or an employer? What are some tips that perhaps people could take away and would help them advance their communication?
Okay. Communication is so important because it is the bridge between clarity and confusion, and communication is the language of our leadership. It's the bedrock of all human interaction. So we have to get that right. The better you are at communicating, the better your life will be. And there's data that backs this up. It's well studied. Now, that's the first thing, is we realize it's important. The second thing is, well, what's the best way to communicate? I can teach you the skills of communication, but that just masks the number one problem in my experience. When you heavily rely on a way to communicate and skills of communication, you project a weaker energy before you even speak. So the path to better communication is actually to get into communication with yourself. Mastering others is intelligence, but mastering yourself is true wisdom. So start there. Start in taking control of your frame. It's very, very hard to have quality conversations that are grounded, that are constructive, and that have depth and empathy and listening attached to them when you are operating outside of your frame. So we all have a frame, which is our psychological context of how we see ourselves and the world around us. If you're needy and you are angry or anything like that, you've been hijacked, you will leave your frame and enter another person's. The problem exists outside of you, and you rely heavily on what they think and what they have to say, and you'll completely negate away from your own frame. So the thing is, if you want to get better at communicating, you've got to take stock of where you're at, who you are, what you're feeling, which is self-awareness, and then learn how to communicate from that frame, from a really balanced perspective. When you're in your frame, you're going to be a better listener. Communication is mostly listening. Listen to what people are truly saying. Then when you start to orientate, you turn your own thermostat, which we all have a thermostat inside that regulates our mood and our worldview and how we see ourselves and how we feel. If you learn how to turn that towards other people and really like reserve your own energy and get into frame, communication's gonna go up 10x.
How do you learn to not take things personally and to turn that thermostat to the other person so that you're actually hearing them and your pressure gauge is not going up and down, heightened with emotions based on your past experiences, and then you're essentially getting hijacked in your communication style?
I don't have a single answer for that because that's a journey to get there. That's the pathway of self-mastery. That's why you work with me. But I can say there's one powerful book. If you want to get this book, it's actually one book that can completely transform your whole thinking. The Four Agreements by Don Miguel. Nothing anyone ever says to you has anything to do with you. It's a projection of their own reality, their own dream. So we train ourselves not to take things personally. And I think that's the big thing is like that comes back to don't play the victim, or notice when you have victimhood tendencies, you're trying to make everything about you. You have this grandiose sense of self that, says you're more important and people are thinking about you more than what they actually are. Most people aren't thinking about you as much as what you think they are. Very rarely are they thinking that. So we go, okay, cool. I can reserve my own self-interest. That's the first thing. I reserve my own self-interest. I'm going to take myself out of the picture here and I'm just going to listen. And then you get good at practicing just listening. And in the listening, you can truly hear what people are saying, particularly with women. You can truly hear what they're truly saying. Whereas a lot of men hear, you haven't taken the bins out. But what that really means is, hey, I'm feeling a bit unseen lately. You said you were going to do something and I'm having trouble trusting that you're going to follow through on anything else. And that comes from listening. Whereas if you're like in defense, straight away go to defense, but I've had a hard day at work. I made us $1 million today. Like you shouldn't even worry about the fucking bins. I made $1 million for us. Yes, but you didn't keep your promise. I don't feel safe at home. You don't care about me. What do you mean I don't care about you? I made us $1 million. Listening and getting in tune and not taking things personally. That's, as I said, it's a process, but that book is really helpful. It's one book that really helped me. It's where I started actually in that with that framework. Just 4 agreements. I can't remember off the top of my head. It's been a long time since I read it, but don't take anything personally is perhaps the most essential tool out of that book.
Definitely. Yeah. So powerful. And let's say, what do you think the biggest thing is that people struggle with?
The biggest thing that holds people back is this gross underlying fear of being judged, not being liked by other people, which really is on a deeper level. It's not the fear of what people will think of us. It's actually that you're actually scared of what you could do and who you could become. And that is the deepest fear of human beings. We think it is because like we orientate with this thinking of, I wonder if they don't like me, I hope they don't think hope they don't think this about me. We want people to think a certain way about us, and that holds us back. But on a deeper level, it's because we're terrified of who we could become and of what life could look like if we were truly ourselves. That is the most important thing. That is the depth of what's holding us back.
That comes down to the need to be liked versus the want to be liked.
And that's what my TED Talk's on. Yeah. Is on this paradox. It's a paradox. It's a tension that exists in all of us between wanting to be liked and needing to be liked because they're two different things. Wanting to be liked is quite natural. As I explained at the start of the episode with the Paleolithic brain, it comes from our instinctual drive to connect. But when there's need, that comes from fear and a lack of self-assurance, low self-esteem.
Do you think everybody should work on themselves?
Fucking oath I do. I wouldn't be here to have these conversations and being that passionate about it. Will everyone? No. A lot of people like robots. All their life is just a set of memorized patterns of behavior. There's no wrong or right way to live. I'm not here to tell you the best way to live. I'm just showing you a path of what it can look like to achieve fulfillment and success and
not being hijacked around your emotions and past traumas, perhaps making sure that you're thinking clearly and that you're not operating with any viral hardware, you could call it.
Well, I think it's just faulty hardware. It's like we all have these beliefs, out of balance beliefs about ourselves that limit us. Like our mind creates, your life is a perfect reflection of your mind. And everything in your life, everything in our lives was once a thought before it was created and made manifest. That's how important it is to, if our thoughts can make us sick, surely our thoughts can make us well. So that begs the question is, well, do I want to become well? Do I want to live a prosperous life? So maybe everyone else doesn't need to quote unquote do the work, but if you want to make a significant impact in the world, if you want to live a significant life and you want to pursue the paths of fulfillment, I truly believe you have to work on yourself, and you have to turn the mind back in on itself, which is what we do in meditation. We see how it's operating, because the mind naturally tends towards disorder, towards entropy. And the way we can organize our life is by understanding the mind and by organizing our consciousness around our aim in life.
What's your take on psychedelics? Is that a cheat code or is that not? Just to give you a change of pace.
Yeah, that's the whoa, shit.
Yeah. Sorry, I know
Let's lift the
we
lid on
were
this.
nowhere near that. But
How much time do we have?
We've got about 15 minutes.
You're the first person that's questioned me on psychedelics. Have I used them? Yes. Do I use them now, and will I use them in the future? No. So we'll start with that.
You don't need to?
I'm at a point in my life where, look, nothing's ever, absolute.
Sure.
But I've done ayahuasca journeys, which has been an intense process that I recommend you do a lot of research on.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's been a fantastic process for clearing a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I
inside.
keep hearing business people keep doing it. I don't know. It's like the new trend. It's a buzz.
It's a trend,
Yeah.
and I'm not here to push it,
Yeah, okay.
because I want people to arrive. The medicine truly called me, and it served its purpose, and that was it. I haven't been back because I got what I needed. Now I've used psilocybin as well, which is I feel like it's still a big experience, but it's not as like I went through a full diet. Like I had 1 month to prepare my diet. I abstained from sex. Lots of things, like to clear to make sure I was truly in my frame and I was ready for the journey, which lasted 6 hours, and it takes you to the bottom.
So what's the go with that? What do you feel? What do you feel bottom or so low that you then rebuild yourself? Do you just get an awareness that it sort of tricks you into you've been meditating for 3 hours, or
it takes you well beyond what meditation I feel can offer you. Meditation, look, I meditate and do breath. I don't need to do medicine anymore. Like I have my breathwork practice, my meditation practice.
Sure.
And I also have found a way to integrate myself into my life. I don't need to escape life. I think sometimes these substances can be used to escape life, and that's the important thing is you want to make sure they stay the medicine, and they're a tool. You don't become the tool. And we see so many people, it's just the way it is. I see so many people getting used by the medicine, You
don't want to be a slave to anything, and that's where abstaining from, drugs, sex, alcohol, smoking, all your vices, I think is really important to, and that comes down to back to the balance thing that we were discussing, which is what I was trying to explore some time ago.
Yeah. Never. So that's the thing. A man can truly get his power by looking into his vices. If you look into your vices, the things, if you can't sit still, wherever there's wherever there's a lack of stillness is where you're not free. Like if you can't sit there in silence without thinking about checking your phone, you're not free. If you can't sit there and maintain eye contact with someone without feeling,
as you say that, I'm like, fuck,
you're not free.
Yeah.
If you can't, I walked on the stage, at TED, and I was just like, it's been a vision of mine, a dream of mine. I was like, lights hit, and I was like, the most simplest lines I wanted to remember, I totally forgot.
Yeah.
And it's like, in that moment, I'm just like, okay, all these vices I've worked through that have held me back and I've had in the way to prevent me from feeling this moment are gone. And now I'm going to just be with the moment. And I just waited. Patience. And I was like, okay, I'm still in myself. I know this will come. Oh, there's that thought. And I just carried it through.
Wow.
And it's like, I think that's why a lot of people fear public speaking, is because on a deep level, you're getting witnessed and seen. And that's why a lot of people, like, coming back to what scares most people, they're scared of who they could become, of witnessing who they could become or being seen for who they truly are. A lot of people, like, you see this like in the crime world. It's like they have these facades and these masks and the tattoos and it's all a facade to try and stop you from seeing who they really are. And it's like the moment that gets exposed, you become vulnerable. The trick is getting so far beyond those vices and getting a connection so deep in yourself that when they're all stripped away, there you are, and that's who I am. And nothing can faze you. That's confidence. That's self-assurance. That's what a man wants.
Dan, the last thing I wanted to ask was more so just around public speaking and how somebody could mentally feel okay with it and not feel that judgment and just be completely in their essence to express, and get across what they want to.
Yeah.
Do you have any suggestions for that?
I do. I actually have a practical suggestion for this. It's called low risk scenarios. So in the TED Talk, I talk about a band of tolerance. We all have a band of tolerance, a rubber band that represents your capacity to do hard things. When you stretch it, you're stretching your band of tolerance, your ability to handle these stressful situations where you just want to coil in and not say things. And so low risk scenario is like a great example of what a low risk scenario is. You walk into someone's house, they say, would you like a drink, or is there anything I can give you? And you say, oh, just have what you're having, which is a water. You want a coffee, right? You can see their coffee maker just behind you. In that moment, you try and stay easy because you want to be liked. That's a low risk exchange. You can start voicing what you really want and who you really are. Voice yourself authentically. And they're not going to kick you out of the house and say after offering. And the funny thing is, if you did take up that offer and you said what you really wanted to say, it only amplifies your value. It denotes your value. It separates you from everyone else. So I think in those moments when a low risk exchange is things where there's less threat. So you might have a chat to mates before you go and approach your boss and ask for a raise. You might have an idea where you're a bit fucking scared about how it's going to happen and it's a stretch. So you'll go and discuss your idea with other successful people and sit and check it with reality. Or maybe not, but you have these low risk exchanges that you execute upon that build the confidence and you start flexing and practicing the muscle of self-assurance, so that when we do have high risk scenarios that are overwhelming or where we recoil and don't want to voice ourselves, you're going to have all this proof that you're confident and you can speak your truth. You can speak to things and you can voice your opinions. You can share your ideas and you can be yourself. Like you're going to be able to do that because you've already got proof that you've done it before in these low risk exchanges and you're not overwhelmed. That's a practical strategy of how to do it, is get curious and look for those moments. So when you notice yourself wanting a coffee and you say, no, I'll just have a water, just say, I know it's a bit of a hassle, but I actually want one of your coffees.
Yeah.
They're going to go, oh, great. Well, yeah, I can make that for you. Fantastic. You've won.
For sure. Dan, the last question I've got for you, some parting advice for some people that want to make the first step towards improving their life and going on this journey. Why don't you give us one book that you'd recommend for helping somebody make the first step?
Shit. God, I've read so many books.
Not the 4 Agreements. That's already in there.
Yeah, that's already. Look, the best. We spoke a lot about men today, and I know you attract a lot of like entrepreneurial-driven men with Maple Club. Shout out Maple Club. The Way of the Superior Man by David Dieter. It is a Bible for men. Pick it up and you'll see why.
Dan, thanks for coming on today. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, sir.